Don't drink the drinking water. Don't drink the water. Okay. It's the title of the stream this week was "Don't Drink the Water" because let's see. The what's the organization? It's not the FDA. It's the US Geological Survey found that over 45% of drinking water has what are called PFAS. They're a harmful substance that is in a lot of different substances or a lot of different surfaces, mostly like anti-stick stuff. Because and so they have a lot, they're very harmful substances. So they're made into a ton of different products, right? So the nonstick pans, that's what they use, are these PFAS, and then the fire extinguisher foam, any packaging product. So you go to go to McDonald's, and I don't know if McDonald's, for example, but that's not a good example. Go to a fast food chain, and they use the nonstick like grease, like the stuff that like catches the grease and doesn't absorb the grease, and it's like nonstick, and that's what this stuff is. So like a pizza shop that their pizza sits on this like piece of paper. Well, that's like what this stuff's made of, and they're called forever chemicals because they take a very, 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 very long time to break down. They get into the water system, they get into your bloodstream, and they can cause loads of issues. So they studied 716 different locations across the country and found that about 75% of tap water in urban areas and 25% in rural areas had PFAS. Now, that's not even the overall number. That's a low number because there are over 12,000 types of PFAS chemicals, and only 32 of them can be tested. So there is a lot of these chemicals out there. Now, what you said, get out of the cities, but I don't know if that's necessarily the case. Filter your water. Now, I've been on Timcast a couple times, and he hammers on this stuff, right? So he talks about the plastics all the time, and that's what this is. So this is kind of validating what he's talking about with the plastics. So when you talk about like the increased rates of gender dysphoria, yes, I think there's a social contagion aspect to this, but also the increased number of plastics and number of chemicals that are in our drinking waters and stuff like that are changing our body chemicals over the last couple decades as these have become more prevalent. And like I said, the EPA say most people in the United States have been exposed to PFAS, which leads to a variety of health complications. These health complications include a decrease in fertility, developmental effects in children. Remember what we talk about when it comes to like rapid onset gender dysphoria and the social contagion aspect. There's a high propensity for the person to be autistic. And so this could be, I'm speculating, okay? This is not me saying that's exactly what this is, but I'm saying that there is a high propensity of children on the autism spectrum to fall into a category to where they end up transitioning. And then there is and many of them end up like there's a high correlation between transitioners and that have autism and those with autism. So again, that makes sense. If we're talking about like a chemical that's in somebody's bloodstream and it's being passed onto their child, that could be cause for concern of developmental effects in children, and that could be one of the leading reasons as to why we see so many people leading down this path. But we also know that, there could be some of these effects that actually cause gender dysphoria in people as well. And this is over the course of decades. This is not something that's new. Like, this study took place. Let me see. This study took place. This is not like a new a study that took like a year to do. Like, they did this study years ago, and I can't remember what it was. Um, but it was over the course of quite a few years. But yeah, so developmental effects in children. It's a huge issue. Like, that's why water, like glass water bottles and filtering your water is important. Using you know, again, um apparently even like aluminum cans like this for water, apparently they also are lined with plastic. And so it's amazing. And even, I don't know, you have to check even with the Britas to see. But yeah, Patty P, you're absolutely correct. It is outrageous how much we are poisoned. Like, everything is poisoning us. I mean, because then there's an increased risk of cancer, an increased risk in cholesterol levels, and possible issues with body's natural hormones. Think about everything that I just said. If a hormone level is what has been kind of determined to cause issues in utero that have led to, you know, somebody having gender dysphoria as a young child, or being homosexual as a young, being homosexual, and you're born that way, that hormone could be introduced in utero. But even still, we see hormones are a huge deal when it comes to, everything that happens, when it comes to all sorts of things. It's the same reason why we talk about like birth control and stuff like that, for example, because it's increasing hormones. And guess what? They know that birth control can also cause suicidality in young females. And so when you look at like messing with hormones is not really a good idea. And I get the irony of me saying this as a trans person who has completely altered my hormone levels. Um, it just doesn't seem. I mean, you don't want it if you don't need it, right? So I was able to make a conscious choice as to the hormones and changing my hormone levels. That's not the case when you're just getting, your hormones are artificially changed because of, chemicals that are in your drinking water. It's not okay. And then we talk about, like, look at cholesterol levels. Well, I wonder really though with cholesterol levels, because like I said, maybe you're exposed to PFAS because, well, you're eating too much fast food. I don't know. But you think about this, and it's like, if you have higher cholesterol levels, or you have some of these increased risk, if you have increased differences in hormone levels, like, is this why they are now pushing like the body positivity movement that we're seeing? That doesn't, maybe, you know, like, is it harder for people to maintain a natural healthy weight? I don't get it. So yeah, do not drink the water, because the water is, um, we should have clean drinking water. And actually, um, in the bipartisan infrastructure law that was passed back in February, they included $2 billion to help fight and promote access to clean drinking water. So there's stuff that they're not even really telling us out there, right? So this is something that should have been front page news. Um, I didn't see this really being talked about anywhere, like, were we at the post millennial the only ones covering this? I don't know. Like, it's interesting, but yeah. it should be something that everybody should go look into and see, what's actually going on there, but yeah, we need to start looking at alternatives to these quote unquote "forever chemicals" that are seeping into our drinking water. And it's not even just and it's like when I talk about like nonstick pans, they say like as a nonstick pan gets dirty or it gets old and it scrapes, like that chemical comes off and it scrapes and then it goes into, the landfill, and then the landfill seeps into the drinking water, and then the drinking water seeps into your tap water, or the water system, and then into the tap water, and causes a lot of issues. And yeah, so it's even if you're in not in a city, and you're in rural areas, it could lead to stuff. So we were all worried about Flint, and I grew up in Flint. I grew up with well water outside of Flint, but um, this seems like it should be just as big of a scandal as the lead in Flint water. But why is it not? Uh, I don't know. Like I said, 12,000 types of PFASs and only 32 of them can be actually checked. So when you hear somebody like Alex Jones say, the chemicals are turning the frogs gay, I don't know. Please don't demonetize me, YouTube. I understand that Alex Jones may have been right, but I don't mean it.